to a new month. So far so good. I've been consistent and I hope that I'll be able to keep up this pace as the year progresses. The classes are going fine and I will probably keep you updated and do an update much later in the year because still things are shaping up. Anyway, this week's video is about mistakes people make when they're trying to set up their fashion business. The thing about how people think about the fashion business here in Kenya is that people mostly think about it in terms of making clothes and selling them. So either making custom made or ready to wear. So I'm going to share some mistakes people make that I've noticed because I realize a lot of people get into the industry with their own personal story. It could be that they just want to make money, that it is also a personal story, or it could be a personal experience they had and they just feel like, I know I can do this business better. And sometimes, I won't lie, people in the industry sometimes find the narratives a bit frustrating because depending on who is giving the narrative, the story could also kind of tarnish the real name or the reputation of the industry. So it ends up being very frustrating, feeling like you're watching interviews people talking about the industry and they're not really representing what the industry is. The truth is, it's also their story, but I would just like to mention 11 mistakes that I have noted over the years, even when people ask me for advice about what they want to do. These are the most common. I'm sure there are others that I probably will not mention, but check it out. Apart from that, I have done a video on mistakes people make when they are sewing in their sewing journey, and I will link the video in the description so that you can check it out. I will do this in slide form just so that I rush. I notice when I do live videos, my videos are longer. When I do it in slide, I know how to cut it short. So I'll do you that favor and do it in slide form. I'll see you at the end of the video. So one of the mistakes that is there is lack of clear brand identity. So this is when people get into the fashion industry and they offer too many products. They don't have a clear customer they're targeting, or they're just busy copying other brands and they feel like, I can make this cheaper, I can be able to make this and sell a lot of them, and also just lacking a compelling story or even having consistent branding. This could really affect your business in the long run, even though at first you make a lot of money. So how to fix it is you need to craft your niche. You don't necessarily have to leave the industry. That's not the point. But if you really want to survive it, you have to have your niche. You need to have your unique story, unique brand story, and you have to be very consistent with how you do your visuals and how you message across all platforms. And the truth is, as you continue, you will realize that as much as you have your own unique brand, you may have to pivot because fashion does change, and you have to pivot and make sure whatever it is you're offering is in line with whatever is trending at that time. You don't have to necessarily follow trends, but you need to make your designs fresh and modern every time. So the next one would be inadequate market and industry research. This is very much tied to the first point because you don't understand who you're targeting, you ignore the trends, and you overlook competition, and you overlook competition just not locally only but also globally, and that generally will affect how long you'll even stay in the fashion industry. So one of the things you need to focus on at this time is to study your customer behavior. You need to know who your customer is. You need to know the trends. So basically, once you know who your customer is, you know what they like to wear and maybe the trends they will probably follow. So you need to know what it is that is new or making it new. It could even be just a fabric and maybe you're still making the same palazzo pants, but maybe you've changed the fabric or something like that. You need to analyze what your competitors are doing. Everyone has competition. Even if you think yours is the most unique, everyone has competition. And then you need to understand how the fashion industry works both locally and globally, because you can't assume that you'll only have local clients, because generally, as long as your things are available on the internet. Everyone has access to it, whether or not you ship globally or not. You need to understand how the industry works, both in and out. And also sometimes, especially in Kenya, because most of our fabrics are imported, the fabrics that come in will definitely affect your brand. So the next one would be poor planning and strategy. So basically, if you keep jumping into the business or jump into a business without a plan or a long-term vision or goals, and you just want to make clothes because maybe you're at a crisis season and you just want to an easy way, as I've said before, fashion has a very low barrier to entry. So some people just think, as long as I make stuff that I can sell, I can just get into it, and you have no goal. So that would be a very bad mistake. It will cost you in the long run. At the beginning, it might not, because what tends to happen is your friends and family will support you, and you'll think they're supporting you because they like your product, which could be true. But even if they like your product and you're not being innovative, how long are they going to support you? They can't keep buying the same thing over and over again. So you need to have a proper business plan and vision of where you want your brand to go. So how to fix it is to set clear, realistic goals, create a roadmap that includes product focus, growth strategy, and business milestones. So you really need to think about that when you are starting to work on your fashion brand. Weak financial management is the next one. This is definitely something that's not necessarily just for people in fashion, but it can affect your fashion business. So if you underestimate costs, if you mix your personal and business finances, and let me tell you, in the fashion industry, this can be very tempting, because sometimes you make yourself an outfit and you don't charge yourself for the outfit, and you just think that it's all good because it's your business and all that. This can actually affect your business. Not pricing products well. I know for a fact this definitely affects, because sometimes you just want to make sales and people can make you feel guilty about how someone else is doing it cheaper. And also expecting fast profits, maybe because you made something that's trending and you think it will sell just because you made it, and it doesn't happen, and it affects your cash flow. So how to fix this? Plan your finances carefully. If you make a dress for yourself from your business, you have to charge yourself like a customer. You cannot just write it off because it's your business. I know I am a victim of it sometimes, especially at the beginning, although these days I've completely changed how I do it. So make sure you plan your finances well and carefully, and track your expenses. You have to track everything. I have talked to several people who run fashion businesses, and they forget that things like transport to go get the material, and even charging for your time is something you actually need to do. So you need to do that. Then you have to have a price strategy, so that if you want to give a sale, it actually still makes sense for your bottom line and you don't go into a loss. Because sometimes you can have stock that is there for a very long time and you actually need to create new things. Of course, you have to separate your business and personal income, and business and personal orders as well. I will put that in there because it affects your finances. So the next thing we'll talk about is ignoring operations and logistics. This definitely affects a lot of fashion businesses, because you end up overbooking or taking many orders and not finishing on time, or you even accept orders that come very last minute. And sometimes also you get orders from overseas and you've not thought about how you're going to get the outfit to that person, and you take the order anyway, and it brings all sorts of reputational issues. So you can't overlook. Always think through how you're going to deliver things in your business, because especially in this digital age, doesn't necessarily mean your customers are always in the same city as you. They could be out of town or even out of the country. So you need to have relationships with shipping companies and people who generally just handle logistics, and your packaging also has to be very, very good. How to fix it is just build a reputable supplier network. Test it even with your own packages, even with your own family members and all that. Make sure you know how it works, so that you can manage expectations of also your clients. Example for me, local deliveries. I like using G4S, and I know that they are next day delivery, but so far so good. They've not let me down, and I started using them a lot during COVID. So if they help me during that time of crisis, for sure it works well. Then internationally, I have used DHL directly, and there's also now a company called ShipSharp that has an account with different delivery companies and give you good affordable rates. So always test this, and make sure you just streamline your logistics and you plan your production and deliveries from end to end. You should know how long your whole process takes from the time you make the outfit to the time it's delivered. And of course, for people who are overseas, sometimes they have someone coming in to pick the order for them and take them abroad. So you need to ensure that is also planned for, and so that you don't get overwhelmed. So the other thing would be ineffective product development and quality control. You have to make sure that you have standardized finish for your work. You need to be known for a certain quality. You can't keep on changing the quality depending on the job. Avoid rushing. I know sometimes, especially here in Kenya, everything is always in a rush, especially for clothes. I don't know why clothes are treated like an emergency and they are not. So you have to make sure that you try and mitigate all those things and try and make sure you have enough time to fulfill orders and to make sure the quality is up to par, and don't neglect certain things. And I won't lie, even for me right now, after all these years of being in the industry, sometimes some of these things I do slip up on them, but you have to improve. Even if you slip up once in a while, you have to make sure you continue to improve as you continue. So you have to prioritize quality at every stage. The materials you use, I've reached a stage in my work where I don't necessarily accept too many experimental fabric because it has not worked well for me. So I try to use materials that I'm very familiar with. I know how they'll behave, I know how the outfit will come out and everything like that, and then try and conduct a quality control check. What I've done to mitigate some of these quality control issues is to just work with tailors who understand the quality I'm looking for, because I really don't like the idea of babysitting the tailor. But I try to make sure I work with tailors who understand the quality I want, so that I don't have to keep repeating myself and having a discussion with somebody, because it can be very demoralizing. So the next one would be limited network and industry engagement. For some reason, I meet a lot of people who've just started in the industry, and they rarely have the networks in the industry. So you are working in isolation, you're going through things, you have nobody to talk to. It could be unfortunate that maybe you joined the industry a bit later in life, so you never had an opportunity to plug into those networks if you came from fashion school, which is sometimes the easiest way to get into the network. So of course, the best way to mitigate this is to attend fashion events, seek mentorship, join industry groups, build partnerships. You have to do this. You can't just work in isolation. And you also try to meet people in the industry who are ahead of you. Maybe you want to achieve the level they are in because they're doing so well, and you have to try and figure out how to meet them. Most of the time you'll meet them at industry events. It's easier to meet them at industry events, introduce yourself, than to just approach them directly. So definitely do not ignore industry events and industry engagements and networking and being part of those WhatsApp groups and asking questions and things like that. And I know one of the reasons I make these YouTube videos is so that this is a resource for people who are trying to get into industry networks and getting information about the industry. So if you are in Kenya and you're looking for a WhatsApp group for peer-to-peer mentorship, please email me, miamaracreations@gmail.com, and I will connect you to the group that I started a while ago. The next one will be weak marketing and online presence. So basically, you don't really pay attention to how you are perceived online or how you post online, or if you even post at all. You are believing that maybe the product will sell itself. Unfortunately, that's not how things work these days. You have to have some digital presence, so you cannot neglect digital marketing, and you cannot neglect trying to find your customer from the online space. Most people are on social media, so most people would probably first check for things on the internet, whether it's on social media or Google. So it's important to have some form of digital presence. So how you fix that is to develop a marketing strategy. Invest in your own website. It's the best. I know people like to push marketplaces and all that, but marketplaces sometimes can be very unpredictable. So definitely invest in your website eventually. Be on social media. These days you can even sell through WhatsApp. So WhatsApp is one of the most popular apps that most people use. You could use that and prioritize both your customer acquisition and your customer retention. Advice I would give specifically for online selling for fashion, you have to try and make things that basically don't need a lot of adjustment. It's very, very hard to do a made to measure service when you're online. It's possible, but it is difficult. So it really depends. Just pick your struggle. The next one would definitely be overproduction without demand. This can happen especially if you got into the industry making something that everybody is buying. Maybe it will sell at first and then eventually it stops being in fashion or it's oversaturated. And you know how Kenyans are. Kenyans do not like having uniform, so to speak. So you could overproduce something. You have not checked the price point. You have not checked how many people are actually buying this thing, or how popular it is, or even if you're even using the right fabric. So overproduction is definitely one of those things you don't want to happen to you, but it happens. So the best thing to do would be to start with small batches or do pre-orders. I know this is not necessarily always the most popular way of doing things because it's also very expensive to do small batches. Mass producing tends to be cheaper, but you also don't want to be stuck with stock that you can't sell. And pre-orders is also sometimes very, very tricky because most of the time when you offer pre-orders, people want to tweak the design a bit so that it's a bit more personalized, and it ends up being a whole different, different business model. So overproduction without demand. So the next one would be mismanaging human resources. So basically, I've seen this a lot, especially in made to measure businesses, and especially owned by people who do not have any sewing skills. The level of abuse I've heard, especially for tailors who are overworked because someone took so many orders and they just want it fulfilled so they can be able to make money, and they've hired these skilled workers and you expect them to just be able to deliver every single time. Mismanaging human. This is probably the most popular way of people being abused in the industry, and especially if you also don't price well and you're underpaying and you want people to work overtime. Yeah, it happens a lot. Of course, there are other departments where this can also happen, but I think in fashion specifically, it is definitely the tailors. So the best way to fix it is to just delegate tasks. Be realistic, even with your clients. As I said earlier, fashion industry, especially having clothes made with the made to order model, people just think it's an emergency and they come very last minute, and it puts a lot of pressure when fashion businesses have to accept these orders because they really need orders, because there's always a season where the orders are many, especially holiday seasons at the end of the year and wedding season. That's when everyone wants to get in their orders, and it can be very overwhelming, and you also feel like you need to take it because you know that maybe at the beginning of the year won't get as much work. So it can be very, very stressful, and I'm not only talking about individuals. Even corporates have a habit of doing very last minute things, and they could plan ahead. So definitely try and manage your human resource a bit better. Hire extra help if you need to. Set clear expectations with your customers. If you can't do it, you can't do it. If you continue to manage your quality, people will start to respect you enough to be able to bring some of these things earlier. So do that. Monitor your output and your consistency. So definitely do that. So the last one will be legal and contractual oversights. So generally, most of the time, I think we wing it when we are working with people in the industry. Generally, most of the time, there are no contracts, so there are a lot of people taken advantage of, especially even the tailors. The tailors can take advantage of you, and you can take advantage of the tailors because sometimes they're also not meeting their contractual agreements, and you may also not be meeting yours. So skipping contract is generally not good. The thing about it here is that a lot of the labor force in the fashion industry is semi-literate to literate, so you might find that you get away with it because they don't know their rights. But I think it's always important to just do the right thing. So how to fix it is always have written agreements with clients. Even if with the tailor you have to have a verbal one and you agree, it's important because you also have to protect yourself. It's not always just about protecting it's not only about your employees being protected, also yourself, because we've also had incidents where tailors take your clients and pass them off as your own and even make your designs for them. So you also have to ensure that you protect your intellectual property. This also includes partnerships with influencers and just different people who would want to partner with you, even fellow designers and stuff like that. Make sure your legal paperwork is intact and that you are protected and they are also protected. So in a nutshell, this is it. Also don't forget that working with models and photographers also falls under all this. Yeah, so that's it from me for now with the 11 mistakes. I hope that the video was helpful. Thank you for watching to the end. I have had to learn a lot of these things myself, so I won't pretend that just because I went and studied fashion in school that I knew this. But I learned some of these things along the way, and that is another reason I wanted to really share these. It's not something that's always obvious because everyone has different reasons why they start businesses, but some of these mistakes can be very costly and has led to a lot of businesses shutting down because they didn't take care of every single process. And sometimes it's very daunting because of the barriers to entry in fashion can be very low. So sometimes people just feel like, I want to get on with it, I just want to make money, I just want to go and do it. But there are very many dangers, from completely losing your business to being stuck in a cycle that you don't like, to losing your creative ambition. There are very many things that can happen, so it's always important to at least know your why. Sometimes you discover your why as you go along, so definitely just don't stop completely. Do it afraid, do it with the mistakes, but also do it with research. Try and learn more about the industry, try and adapt yourself into the industry, and try and make your business something that could be able to help you into your future. Very many people drop out of fashion later on in life, and then you just see most designers are young people. The older designers dropped out because maybe they were not making enough money, so they stopped doing fashion completely, or they get into a career like teaching and stuff like that. Anyway, there is really nothing wrong with all that, but I think it's worth thinking through, especially because we don't have any legacy brands at least in Kenya. I don't know about the rest of the continent. A lot of our fashion businesses die off with the founder, which is sad. We need brands to be legacy, like the high-end ones abroad. So anyway, that's it from me this month. Definitely, hopefully my video for next month will be ready in time, but you will definitely know when it's ready when I post it. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I guess I'll see you next time. Bye.